Hi everyone, so this is session number 2 for Better Health, Better Self. If you're watching this video, that means that you've either not been able to attend for whatever reason, or you've decided to recap, revise some of what we discussed at the practical session. So without further ado, I'm going to get on with the session because I don't want these sessions to be too long-winded. When we do have activities planned within a session, I'll probably just ask you to pause and you can then do the activity which is asked, but that's something you can do at your own pace and in your own time. So hopefully it won't be too long of a video. So without further ado, let's start with session 2, food groups. If you've not already, join the Facebook group. It's private and you just have to go to Chorley Council Weight Management Advice. I will then, or admin will then add you to that group, and this is obviously going to be a group where you can communicate with other people within the group at your sessions and the other sessions that are running at the same time. And it's a great way just to help each other through the trials of trying to lose weight. It can be difficult, so it's really important to be able to help each other on this journey and support each other, as well as obviously myself being in there as well, facilitating by hopefully putting in there some interesting content and some help and support from myself. So to recap quickly, last week we discussed the wider aspects of living with obesity and the wider impacts on your health. We discussed what free apps are already available to aid with weight loss. We had a chat about adherence and keeping it simple basically, energy balance, running through calories in versus calories out in just a little bit more detail, and then we handed out some diaries and discussed the hunger and fullness scale and its importance on your weight loss journey. So today's session, our objectives are to look at the Eat Well guide, and this is going to try and help us build a healthy, balanced, sustained diet, and this is what's suggested via Public Health England. We're also going to learn about some important macronutrients, carbohydrates, proteins and fats, and also look at what a plate of food looks like, which would be ideal for you, and maybe a little bit of guessing to see what our current knowledge is around what food looks like and what kind of calories this is carrying, and then we'll finish with some goal setting. So, Eat Well guide. This is how it looks without the information. So I've done this just to have a discussion around what the 5 main food groups are. So if you've not guessed already, the first one is fruits and vegetables. That's 1/3 of your daily intake. That's the green section. The yellow section is your starchy carbohydrates. So again, that's another 1/3. So your vegetables plus your starchy carbohydrates are 2/3 of what you should be eating over a day, or maybe look at this over a week, not necessarily what your food looks like on your plate. So imagine you're going to a supermarket. These sorts of foods, your fruits and vegetables, your starchy carbohydrates, should be 2/3 of what you put in your trolley. You've then got a sliver, a purple column, which is oils and fats. So again, they're essential, you need them, but in small amounts. The blue one is dairies and alternative dairy products. This is a little bit more, and then you've got your protein, which again is important. So I'll just fly up the exact percentages of what your diet should consist of on the whole. Now, you should have all of these 5 food groups in these ratios. If you've not, then this is something that you can look at. Maybe you don't have enough fruits and vegetables. Maybe you don't have enough protein. Maybe you have too many oils and fats. So you can judge that yourself. So this Eat Well guide is there as a general rough guide of what you should be having to eat over a full day. But like I said, I think it's good to look at this over a week. And the easiest way to do that is look at what your shopping looks like and if it actually looks like this. Outside of the circle are foods which are eaten less often and in small amounts. This should cater for about 3% of your food. Now it's outside the circle because these foods are not essential for anything. The only probably reason why we have them is because they taste good. So this is how it looks in real life. So you can see on the outside you've got the crisps, the biscuits, the chocolate, the cookies, the cakes, the ice cream, the sauces. These do not help with your overall health, but we understand we have them because of the taste. But everything in these ratios within the circle are for health. So you've got to try your best to aim for these. There's some more information on there, but this is information which we can probably come back to at a later date. Now, your first food group, in a bit more detail, are your fruits and vegetables. So I've said 1/3 of your diet, at least 5 portions per day. A portion, what does it look like? Well, if you're measuring it, it's 80 grams. So that could be like a fruit. So I've got some melon, some banana on there. And a portion of dried fruits is less, it's 30 grams. But to keep it simple, I suggest that if you're looking to add food to your plate, 3 tablespoons of vegetables is considered a portion. So here, you don't necessarily have to weigh your food. You can if you want to see what it looks like, but general rule of thumb, it would be 3 tablespoons of vegetables, and that will consist of 1 portion. And not to forget, fruit juice. This can be one of your 5 a day, but it has to be no more than 150 mils. If you're having 300 mils of orange juice, for example, half of that would be one of your 5 a day. The other half would be additional sugars, which if you revert back to the Eat Well guide, that would be on the outside, so that would be additional sugar. So it's okay to have smoothies and drinks, but remember, they should be no more than 150 mils per day. Anything additional, and that would be additional sugars, which we need to try and keep to a minimum. So, what are the benefits for the body, you may ask? Well, they provide the body with vitamins and minerals, which can help bolster your immune system, which is really, really important. And also, they're a great source of fiber and energy. So, our next food group is going to be starchy carbohydrates. Now, starchy carbohydrates, things like bread, do get a bad reputation. People instantly think they should be cutting out the bread. But you need to remember, these starchy carbohydrates consist of, they take up 1/3 of your daily intake. So what I would say is just be mindful of how much you're having of them. If you feel you're having too much bread, then look to limit that. Now, basing your meals ideally around potatoes, bread, rice, pasta is what is recommended, but ideally you're choosing whole grain versions where possible. Again, 1/3 of your diet comes from starchy carbohydrates, and whole grain foods contain more fiber than white. So if you do tend to have white bread, for example, try to have whole grain. There's more fiber. This is what we need to be having in our diet. Not enough people have enough fiber, so this is a quick win to get more fiber into your diet by reverting to whole grain products, and not forgetting they've got more nutrients in there as well, because the nutrients are stripped when the bread is made white. So what are the benefits for your body? Again, they provide energy and they're a good source of nutrients. They also provide that fiber which we mentioned, and some essential Vitamins and minerals, calcium, iron, and your B vitamins, which are really, really important, especially when you're getting older. So your next food group, we've got dairy and your alternatives. So where possible, choose low fat, low sugar options. Look at the labels when choosing milks and which are lower in fat. So if you currently drink whole milk, go to semi-skimmed. If you drink semi-skimmed, go to skimmed. Basically, the more skimmed it goes, the less fat content you're going to have in there. Yes, they're a little bit more processed, but there's less fat content, and what we're looking to do is decrease your fat content within your diet. And when buying dairy alternatives like soya and drinks, go for the unsweetened varieties, which are fortified with calcium. So what are the benefits for the body? Great source of calcium, which we mentioned, for healthy bones, skin, teeth, nerves, and vision. And if you're looking to try and implement the right amount of dairy into your diet, this is what it looks like. For example, 1 glass of skim milk, 150 grams of plain low-fat yogurt, and a matchbox piece of cheese. Again, you know the size, and I'm not talking the kitchen matchboxes, the small matchboxes would be the recommended amount of cheese to have. Protein, again, important to have protein in your diet. We'll get to the reasons for having it shortly, but 2 portions of fish every week is essential for the body, especially oily fishes like salmon, sardines, mackerel, and kippers. Beans and peas and lentils, these are also a good source of protein and an alternative to meat if you're trying to keep your meat content down. And this is something that you should be trying to do if it is in if you're currently having meat in excess. Trying to add these beans and lentils to stews is a great way to implement them into your diet and make the meal go much farther. Also very high in fibre. And just to finish on this point, no more than 70 grams of red meat or processed meat per day would be a good recommendation. Now this is current guidelines for preventative diseases really, so it is linked to specific diseases having too much red meat. So my advice, if you are having more than 70 grams, maybe this is something you need to look at within your diet. What are the benefits for your body? They're very important. It's very important for growth and repair. Your body is constantly breaking down and building itself back up again, and protein is one of the essential building blocks to allow this to happen. Protein also, as a byproduct, can help reduce hunger and your appetite, and also really importantly, help to boost your metabolism. Last one for food groups, oils and spreads. So when choosing oils, go for the unsaturated spreads, and obviously choose small amounts because we need to have them, but in small amounts. Look for the plant sources, which come from liquid forms. So anything which comes from a plant source of oil would be the more advantageous oil to have. And again, looking for the amount, 1 teaspoon per person on a sandwich. So if you're looking for that spread, it is literally 1 teaspoon. These are the guidelines, should I say. And if you're having 3, then having 2 teaspoons will be better than 3. These are just the targets that which public health have advised people to have. What are the benefits for your body? Well, again, oils and spreads do have benefits. They provide us with essential fatty acids. Now, the essential fatty acids, the clues in the name, they are essential. You need them to help you absorb vitamins A, D, E, and K. You can't actually produce some of these essential fatty acids, so you need to get them from foods. So it's essential you get them in your diet because we can't produce them ourselves. So other important information we need to understand is the foods that are the foods that are not needed in our diet should be consumed in small amounts. I've put a picture here of chocolates and things like that. So we can have them, but if we are going to consume them, we need to have them in small amounts. I'll always say in my sessions, I don't demonize any food whatsoever. It's just a matter of looking at it, how often you have it, why you're having it. Aiming to drink 6 to 8 glasses of water a day. If you don't like water, you can obviously have other forms of liquid. And then obviously checking food labels and avoiding foods which are high in fat, salt and sugar. Now this is one of the sessions which we'll come to in later weeks around food labeling. So we have got a discussion now around macronutrients. Now this is ideally not how your plate looks, but it gives you a ratio of carbohydrates within your meal. Now carbohydrates are fruits and vegetables and starchy carbohydrates. We're not including the fruits and vegetables because they come under carbohydrates. We've also taken out dairy, if you would have noticed as well, because obviously dairy it's a fat, it's a protein and a little bit of carbohydrates. But we're also looking at these 3 micronutrients to try and make your life a little bit easier. So when we're looking at foods throughout the day, you can actually ask yourself, have I had too many or too little carbohydrates? Have I had too much fat or too little fat in my diet? And the same for protein. So this is an important question that you can ask yourself, and this is a question that you'll get better understanding the further down the line you go, and the more knowledge you build around food, and the more of the relationship you build with food as well, and you can kind of begin to use your initiative around choosing the right kinds of foods. So if we go around the circle, obviously these are oranges, you've got some pasta, all carbohydrates, rice, carbohydrates, bread, carbohydrates, and bananas, carbohydrates. But then we go into butter. So butter is essentially fat, yeah? So that comes under the fat. People think it's a dairy, obviously because of where it comes, but it is a fat in the body. So that's where it lives. You've also got like a cereal like muesli. It's very high in fat, but high in protein and high in carbohydrates. So it will sit on that border. You've got sausages, again, they're a protein, but they're high in fat, so they sit on that border. Similar to peanut butter and cheeses, they sit on the border, and you've got like a white meat, which is more of a rounded protein and low fat. Hardly any fat in there at all, actually. And so what I want to get from this slide is you hopefully have a good understanding in general what the main macronutrient, i.e. carbohydrate, protein, fat, is for that specific food. The more understanding you get of macronutrients, these 3, the more of a understanding you'll get of whether or not you feel you've had too much or too little of each of these 3. And we're just going to skip, and forgot milk. Milk is kind of in the middle because it is fat, carbohydrate and protein. The more skimmed you make it, obviously the less fat is in there, and the increase in sugar is in there as well. But it kind of sits in the middle because it's all of one, really. So look at your food diaries. So hopefully now you have done a food diary for the week. I would like you to get out your food diary and just have a quick look at your specific one. And then I'm going to put up John's specific food diary and also Joanne's specific food diary. So what I want you to do, now I put these on so you can then rewind and go back to John and stay on here and then pause it when looking at your own. What I would like you to do is look through your own, look through John's and look through Joanne's food diary and come up with 2 positives and 2 negatives for each diary. So you've got 3 diaries, yourself, John's and Joanne's, and I want you to write down 3 positives and 3 negatives for each person. Now you can pause it here if you like, because I'm going to give you some of my positives and some of my negatives. So for Joanne, there's lots of, the positive is there's lots of detail. This is enough detail for me it's actually not far off, after doing the calculations myself on ratios, of being pretty good in terms of being able to lose weight. So this is roughly about 2,000 calories in total. So although you might be looking through it and see, well, this person has had, let's have a look, sausages, or they've had some chocolate, it's fine to have these in small amounts and still be able to lose weight. Some negatives, there's a few gaps, and not really managing to eat her 5 a day. John on the other side, there's not enough detail at all. It's almost like he's rushed it and he's not really paid attention to it. And there's too many gaps in there as well to say that maybe he's had things and he doesn't want to write them down. The positive I would say is he did it, which is a start, and he did have his breakfast every day. So that would be a positive. So we're going to just quickly skip through this. Oops. So here, our last task. I'd like to look at these foods which we've got on the video. The first one's number 1. This is 1 egg, a slice of tomato on wholemeal bread, thinly spread with butter, and a piece of fruit. I'd like to guess how many calories you think is in that picture, roughly. And then number 2, you've got an oat bar snack and a low-fat yogurt. Again, generic ones. Have a guess how many calories are in that. Number 3, you've got rice. There's about 100 grams of rice in there. That's dry weight, with half a pot of tuna, a big bag of spinach, half a red pepper with some dressing, which is olive oil, and there's also a dollop of mayo in there as well. I'd like you to guess how many calories you roughly think are in that, and then write them down. So again, I'm going to give you the answers and you can see how close you got. So your breakfast, 450 calories. I put ratios in there roughly to say that this meal is 50% carbohydrates, 35% fats and 15% protein. We don't necessarily need to worry about that too much, but if you've got any questions around that, I can discuss that with you on a one-to-one. But ideally, we're just looking at the calories. The ratios are probably a bit too much detail. Like I say, we like to keep things simple. Calories for the lunch, 600. Tea and dinner, 850. Now, I've included this mac and cheese because you might feel that it's not ideal when trying to eat healthy, but you can have these sorts of foods if every day if you need to, if your target is just to lose that weight. But ideally, they come from real foods, but there's no problem with having them if you need to because they are convenient, and that's probably the best reason to have them and the reason to cook. Snacks, the oat bar snack and the low-fat yogurt combined is 300. That in a total is over 2,000 calories, 2,200. Again, showing you that, oops, gone too far, that food doesn't have to be perfect to be the right kind of calories for you. And this is what real life meals, food looks like. And I'd like you to look at this as just a picture. So you could take pictures yourself for your own meals, and you could then compare them against meals that you might have taken pictures of maybe over previous weeks. So this could be a way of monitoring using your diary as well, so taking pictures. But this is just a good depiction of what roughly just over 2,000 calories looks like. And also included in that, there's lots of variety, which is important. Now here, the task is I want you to design your own breakfast, lunch and tea, which has 5 a day. You've got near enough hopefully you've got all of the 5 food groups and looking at roughly the right kind of ratios of foods in there. So we are including the macronutrients, the proteins, the fats, where your fat's coming from. So you can draw this and write this, or you can just write this. Lastly, to finish with, we have got the SMART goals. So this is one of the best ways you can determine what your goals are for the week. So if you're struggling to write the goal, this is how to do it. So you can pause this and have a quick read. And you've got a sheet to then fill out your goal. And there we have it. You're going to have a document, which is your online reflective log. I'd just like you to potentially just read that and answer the questions on that log, which would then coincide with that session, and then hand that back to me. Just shows me that you've understood the video content, and I would then be able to help you moving forwards. So hopefully you've enjoyed that video, and good luck for this week, and we'll see you next week.